back to yet another video and to another list video here on the channel, where today I'm going to be going over 10 shockingly expensive Disney Cars diecasts from the past 5 years that you may own. There are so many cars that when I'm browsing eBay, I see have ridiculously high prices, and it always shocks me because oftentimes these will be cars that I remember buying in the store for $4 only 3 or 4 years ago. So I decided to compile a list of some of the most surprisingly expensive cars diecasts from the past 5 years that I could find. Let me know how many of these cars you guys have down in the comments. And just so you know, while I've mostly chosen items I do own on this list, there are a few that I don't own. This isn't a list of the most expensive cars diecasts from the past 5 years. It's just 10 that I think are really interesting with how much they've gone up in price. In order to find the price of each of these items, I went to US eBay. I live in the US, so all math was done with US currency and such, although not every listing was from the US, and we'll get into that later on, as sometimes that affects the price, as a lot of times where items were predominantly released will affect the price. You'll see that happen a few times here on the list. Regardless, everything was done on US eBay with US prices. I took the average of each item by adding up the price of each of its eBay listings and dividing by how many listings there were to, again, find an average price of each item, and I will be listing them from least expensive to most expensive. Again, it's not a most expensive cars list, it's just 10 very interesting ones. Anyway, let's get started with number 10, which is this guy right here, the car that inspired me to make the list, Primer Lightning McQueen's single release. Released in late 2017 in Europe and early 2018 in the US, this Lightning McQueen was a Toys R Us exclusive as part of the Radiator Springs Classic series and retails for an average price of $37. He has 3 eBay listings currently, and he is one of those cases where a car is affected by how they were released and where they were released. Like I said, this car and his entire wave were released in Europe first, and people thought he wouldn't even come to the US. I became one of the first people to find him in the US in early 2018, so I was lucky enough to get him back in stores when he first came out. Although, like I said, he was a Toys R Us exclusive at the beginning of 2018, and in the US and most other places in the world, Toys R Us shut down all of its locations just a few months after this guy came out. His US eBay listing is $68, but his 2 listings from Europe are only around $20 each, with one for $20 and one for $24, not counting shipping. Of course, shipping is also like an additional $20, but of course, shipping depends on where you live in the world, so I didn't count shipping prices for this video. But as you can see, he is way more expensive in the US than he is in Europe, since his release in the US was a lot more limited. So yeah, if it were all US listings, this guy would definitely be higher up on the list, as his one US listing was $68, but when you add those international listings in that are only around $20 each, he gets bumped down to number 10 at the list at $37 for his average price. At spot number 9, we have the car with the most eBay listings out of anyone in the video, Cupcake Lightning McQueen, who goes for an average of $60. He was released as part of the Funny Flashbacks line in 2020, and he had quite the variety of different prices when I looked him up. Of course, on average, he goes for $60, but some listings had him for as high as $100. Most of them, however, were $65 to $75, which is why he averaged out at around $100. For those of you who don't know, as cool as this Lightning diecast is, the cupcake icing itself is just an accessory that goes on top of a regular Rusty's McQueen, which is pretty funny because this is one of the most common Lightning variants, meaning that you really are just paying for the icing accessory. Coming in at spot number 8, we have RV Motorhome from the Thunder Hollow Demolition Derby sequence of Cars 3, who goes for an average price of $67. RV is easily the most released car out of everyone on this list, with a deluxe and 3-pack release in 2017, and deluxe releases in 2018, 2021, and 2022. He has several loose listings on eBay right now, but only has 3 of him in the packaging. 2 of which are his 2017 release, and 1 of which is his 2022 release. However, that listing comes from Canada and is the cheapest of the 3. RV is a very cool car, and a lot of the Demolition Derby cars are quite expensive because of their very unique looks and desirability, but RV has been released for the past 2 years, which makes it pretty surprising that he costs this much, despite the fact that, again, he is out for this year in 2022 and was out last year for 2021. However, for the past few years, many stores have not been stocking deluxes here in the US, which probably explains why RV costs so much now, despite still being out for the past 2 years. We go from one Demolition Derby car to another, with Mr. Drippy up next on the list, with an average price of a whopping $82. This guy was released as a deluxe and in a 3-pack in 2017, and once again in 2020, and it's his 2020 Blue Desert release that tends to be a bit more expensive than his other releases, with one listing even being $150 for this guy. Mr. Drippy is a very unique, very desirable car. He's the only water tanker in the Cars Diecast line, and just like a lot of the other Thunder Hollow cars, due to his uniqueness, it's definitely driven his price up on the aftermarket. Up next on the list, we have Racing Red Mater. Released in 2021 as part of the Special Racing Red series. This guy now goes for $95, and as you can see, I don't have him. Yeah, I will probably never have a full Racing Red collection because of just how ridiculously expensive this Mater is. Of course, the Racing Red line was a special line done sort of for the 15th anniversary of the first Cars movie and the franchise in general, making special metallic red versions of several important characters from each of the movies, including Mater, who was brand new Mater for the line. Yeah, this is a car that I remember being expensive right out of the gate. As early as a few months after he came out, he was already going for a good $75, so of course he has since increased in price. I never found this guy in stores. In fact, I never found his case in stores, so yeah, unfortunately, I don't have him. Making its way into the top 5 list is our first entry to cost over $100 on average, and it's also the only 2-pack entry on the list. It's Heyday Junior Moon and Eli Turnpike. Released in late 2019 as part of the Doc's Racing Days series in the Blue Desert line, Eli Turnpike is really the reason why this 2-pack is so expensive. As Heyday Jr. was released in a 2-pack with Leroy Hemming last year, that tends to be around $18 to $20 on eBay, while meanwhile his pack with Eli goes for anywhere from $90 to $150. That's right, and there are only 3 listings for it currently up on eBay. So it's really Eli that made this pack so expensive now. And he is pretty cool, one of the more unique legend racers, I'd say. This is one of the entries that I really don't have much to say for, because this is one of the ones that surprised me the most. To see Eli Turnpike, of all characters, be so expensive is crazy. Like, if Heyday Jr. hadn't been released again too, then maybe I get why it got so expensive, since he is a notable character in Cars 3, but no. Eli's the reason why this costs so much, which is crazy. At spot number 4, we have Fair Game, released in the Thunder Hollow series in 2020 in the Blue Desert line. He only has one eBay listing, which is $125, meaning that on average, he costs $125. Fair Game is one of the more notable members of the Thunder Hollow Demolition Derby. He speaks quite a bit in the movie, and yeah, I'd say he's probably the most prominent member of the Derby itself, right after Miss Fritter, Dr. Damage, and RV. He was meant to be released in a 3-pack back in 2017, but that 3-pack was canceled, and he was a hotly anticipated release until he finally came out in 2020. When he did, I could not find him. In fact, it was my dad who found him while he was on vacation and stopped in a grocery store. Yeah, he's that obscure of a release that I didn't find him, my dad did at a grocery store on vacation. Shout out to my dad for calling me from that store and telling me who they had so that I could get fair game and complete my Demolition Derby collection. And that's one of the reasons why this guy is so expensive. People want a full set of Demolition Derby cars. With the rest of the Derby racers having been released in 2017, fair game was sort of a straggler for a few years until they finally released him in 2020. Honestly, not that surprised that this guy has gotten expensive. I'm just surprised with how expensive he's gotten. However, if you're desperate for any piece of fair game merch in your collection, you can pick up his mini racer, which released in 2018, for a fraction of the cost. He's also a fraction of the size. Moving on. Coming in at spot number 3 on the list, with a price just $1 more than fair game of $126, we have Stu Scatter Shields, released in 2017's Cars 3 line as a deluxe. Stu is a Piston Cup flatbed that appears very briefly behind Ryan inside Laney in the movie, and is easily one of the most obscure Cars 3 releases that we got. Contrary to popular belief, he doesn't show up where Tiny Lugsworth does in that overhead shot of McQueen after he's crashed. He's behind Ryan Laney, but still, he is another member of the Piston Cup emergency staff. Stu's entire deluxe wave didn't make its way to the US. That included other cars such as Jocko Flocko Mac and the Lightyear blimp. And while both of these have since gotten re-releases, Jocko Flocko Mac in a multi-pack, and of course he was also a hauler pack, and the Lightyear blimp again in 2018, Stu has never been re-released, thus causing his price to go way up. His only 2 listings are from the UK, and they are both quite a bit. I am consulting my notes right now. They are $96 and $156, and they both have $50 shipping since they're from the UK. So to get to where I am in the US, it's going to be another $50 in addition to those already crazy prices. Again, for the averages, I didn't count shipping costs since they tend to fluctuate based off of where you are, but yeah, to get to where I live, it's going to be another $50 in addition to those already crazy prices if I were to ever get Stu. So here's hoping he gets re-released someday, which I doubt because he's so obscure, but who knows? At spot number 2, we have the only release on this list to be from the pre-Cars 3 era of 2017. It's Vladimir Trunkov with boot from the 2017 London Chase Series. This guy now goes for $135, and that is his only eBay listing, so it is the price that his average is, since it's the only one. Yeah, spot number 2 for this guy, which is crazy. I got him for Christmas of 2017. Back then, he wasn't all that expensive since he was an early 2017 release. He's a very unique release. I always love when they do variants of characters that aren't main characters. So yeah, I really love this guy with his unique parking boot and unique expression. He is the only car out of all the parking boot cars to have his on the back wheel. Just a fun fact there. And yeah, $135 is pretty crazy for this guy, especially when you take into account the fact that the regular Vladimir Trunkov, who I actually don't have, only goes for around $15 to $20. You should probably get the regular Vladimir. At least he won't cost too much compared to this guy. And finally, at spot number 1, we have a 2-way tie between Sudeep and Christoph, 2 Rusty's Racing Center trainees from 2018's Rusty's Racing Center line, who both only have 1 eBay listing from Bulgaria, from, I believe, the same seller, who is selling both of them for $200 each. That's right, $200 each. They also have quite a few eBay listings that are loose listings that tend to be around $100, and even then it's just 2 or 3 listings for them loose, and they're each, again, around $100. Absolutely insane. These are 2 Rusty's Racing Center trainees that are really no different than the other 15 or so that we've gotten. They just have different numbers and highlight colors. But the reason why these guys are so expensive is because they were never released in the US. They were only released internationally. In fact, their whole wave was. That wave also included cars like Adam Park and Metallic Dino Dravsky. Adam Park was re-released in 2019 and was released in the US then, and Metallic Dino Dravsky is a whole lot cheaper than Sudeep and Christoph, which is interesting. I think a lot of people just want to complete their Rusty's Racing Center trainee collections, and that's another reason why these 2 have gone up in price so much. Really shocking. When we inevitably get the real Sudeep with VR headset instead of you know, Jay, as he was, who was mistakenly labeled as Too Deep with VR headset. Maybe we'll see their prices go down, but I really highly doubt it. Anyway, guys, there you have it. There are 10, technically 11, shockingly expensive Disney Cars diecasts from the past 5 years. Of these, I had all of them except for 3, technically 4, because Too Deep and Kristoff are 2 different cars. Let me know how many of these you guys had in the comments, and what other cars you think are shockingly expensive. I'd love to do a part 2. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.